Welcome to Beyond the Bell. My name is Devin Del Palacio, and I am your host. Beyond the Bell is all about bringing on education leaders who are doing the work each and every day to help our students reach their fullest potential. And today, I have the pleasure to be joined by Dr. Mara Noemi Lopez. Heavy on the I at the end, okay? So today, we're going to be getting an opportunity to get to learn more about her work, her contributions, and her journey. And so a little bit about Dr. Lopez. She's the inaugural director of the Hispanic Serving Institution Research Center at the University of Arizona. She holds a doctorate in education with the emphasis in leadership and innovation from Arizona State University, so she doesn't discriminate, U of A and ASU. Her research focuses on curriculum redesign, career decision-making, self-efficacy, and student-conscious pedagogical practices. It's a lot there. She has over 17 years of research experience on federally funded grants. She's earned a BA in psychology as well from San Diego State University and an MA in organizational leadership from Point Loma University. She's dedicated to advancing STEM pathways for historically marginalized students and reshaping institutional practices to better support their success. And lastly, she's passionate about mentorship, and equity in education, and using research as a tool for change. Dr. Lopez, welcome to Beyond the Bell.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, we're excited to have you. I understand you're the inaugural director, but you're also our inaugural guest here on the podcast. So it's an honor to have you. And what not a better guest to kick off our journey with Beyond the Bell.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
All right. So look, let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your journey.
Okay.
How did you get to where you are now, right? What did that journey look like for you?
Yeah. So I think that that's a really great question. I also just want to mark that I love what you're doing here. I love what the intentionality you've put forth in building this opportunity to share different educational pathways. And I think that mine is unique and also quite common. In order to achieve all that I've achieved, I didn't really take a linear pathway. You know, it took me 12 years to acquire my bachelor's degree. When I got my bachelor's degree, my daughter was 6 months old. And then I went on to pursue my master's. And when I got my master's, my son was 6 months old. When I got my doctoral degree, when I earned my doctoral degree, my kids were 4 and 6.
Wow.
So while my story is not of the quote unquote traditional student, it's not uncommon that students take a more, a more scenic route towards academic achievement. So I'm happy to talk a little bit more about what that looked like for me too.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I think you're right. Not every journey is linear. It's filled with highs and lows, peaks and valleys, right? In 12 years, I'm sure there's a lot that happened. And there were probably moments in which you wanted to give up. So how did you push through?
Yeah, so I guess it starts a little bit with my upbringing. So I was raised in a small border town called the Imperial Valley. It's in California. It's about 4 hours from here. My mom and my grandma raised us. It was me and my 3 brothers. You know, they worked in the fields in California for very many years. Then they both retired, one as an elementary school teacher and one as a lunch lady. So my nana was the lunch lady at my elementary school. She always gave me the coldest chocolate milk. But they really taught the 4 of us, you know, perseverance, persistence, and our incredible work ethic, right? But they weren't really able to advocate for our academic achievement given their experiences. So a lot of us had to, or all 4 of us had to kind of figure those things out on our own. I was also a scholar athlete. So one thing that tethered me to my academic achievement was sports. I played volleyball, basketball, and softball from age 9 to 19. You know, at the junior college, you can only play 2 years of eligibility. And after that, I didn't really know what tethered me to school, you know. Sports was really my tether. And then I kind of just piecemealed my schedule together. I didn't really seek mentorship or guidance. I didn't ask questions. I just took a class here, took a class there. But then really what the turn was is that I started to work a couple part-time jobs. And then I didn't feel I had a sense of purpose really in school. until one day I started my first job in research was as a research assistant or as a family health coach. That's what my title was, but I was really a research assistant. It was for this childhood obesity prevention project funded by the National Institutes of Health. The principal investigator of that research study became my mentor, and still we have such a strong connection still. And I worked for him for many years, and at one point he was like, girl, like, why aren't you done with your program yet? You know, why haven't you finished it? And I was like, I really don't. I'm just trying to get money. Like, I love what I do, but I'm not really tethered to school. I want to make money and make an impact. And he goes, okay, I have this opportunity for you, still as a program manager now in research, for you to help facilitate this training and mentoring program. It's all for underrepresented minoritized students. But you need to serve as also an example, not just as a leader, but as an example. I'll give you this opportunity that you're deserving of, but you have to commit to this, to completing your program. So I committed to completing the program, but really it was all the students that I worked with. There was 25 students, 20 undergraduate, 5 at the master's level. They all look like me. I look like them. I'm still in communication and in relationship with many of them still. They've inspired me. They changed the trajectory of my career. They helped me, acquire a sense of purpose to my educational achievement. But really it was that mentorship, like feeling seen, feeling like I belong, feeling like there's a reason why. And then after that, it was just kind of a snowball effect.
And I think you're right that your story is unique, but in many ways it's common. Mm-hmm. So growing up, my mom always, of course, she cared about my education.
Yeah.
But she was a full-time working mom. Mm-hmm. And she was focused on paying the bills, ensuring we had a roof over our head and that the electricity was on. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean our parents care less, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure your parents were still passionate about your education. Yeah. Just because they weren't involved, didn't know to advocate, doesn't mean that they didn't care less, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what advice would you give parents who are working parents, right? Yeah. And perhaps maybe they might not know how to support their child in their academic, endeavors?
I think that this is kind of like a twofold response that I have. As a child of someone who had parents that didn't necessarily provide them like support with applying for FAFSA or financial aid or loans. When I think about the support that I received from my mom, I think about the personal responsibilities that she instilled upon me, my work ethic, my persistence. I'm a little bit motivated by spite, like she told me that no one can tell me no. And that inspired me to persist when people did tell me no along the way. Those helped with academic achievement. That helped. So while she didn't help with the logistics of it, she helped in this other way. I think that a lot of us as students, as children, we say, I'm a first generation student. My parents didn't help me. They didn't help you because they didn't have the tools, because they didn't have the knowledge, right? But how else did they help you? So I don't hold my mom responsible for me taking out a janky loan. That's my responsibility. But I appreciate her instilling upon me resilience and persistence. On the other hand, for parents, I think it's really important that you get involved somehow. Ask questions, meet teachers, inquire, Google. If your child is exploring something brand new, go on that journey with them. You don't have to have all the answers to everything. But your student, your child needs to know that you're there, that you're willing to help, that you're going to serve as a guide. You don't have to have the answers.
And I think that's important to really double down on. For our parents listening, you don't have to have all the answers, and that's okay. Heck, I'm a parent. I don't have all the answers.
No,
none of us do, and that's okay. Yeah. But as long as you're showing up.
Exactly.
Right? Would you agree that showing up is important in the child's life? So let's talk purpose. Yeah. You mentioned that a few times.
Yes.
What's your purpose?
I think my purpose in life is I'm really tethered to this idea that I live in a spirit of service. I work in the spirit of service. My goal is to help advocate for students that are deserving of advocacy. My goal is to help amplify the stories of people who have achieved the presumably unachievable, because I think that our stories matter, right? I have this particular ick with this term, the quote unquote non-traditional student. I don't know what it is about it. It's just like, it just drives me up the wall because it gives this connotation that the traditional student is someone that goes into higher education, completes in 4 years, has all the parental, cultural, familial, financial support to finish, gets the one job right after college, and then is happy for the rest of their life, right? While that's ideal in a lot of ways, financially, time-wise, and many other ways, that's not the most common story. But the rest of us that prolonged our journey towards academic achievement, we're considered as non-traditional. And it gives the connotation of failure, or you become othered as a result of your choices in that process. And I think that it's important for us to embrace that journey is an exploratory journey. It's not a finite journey. It's not supposed to be linear. You're supposed to enter at 17, 18, and explore this journey as to what you want to do for the rest of your life or something that you're interested in, right? I think promoting that earlier on is helpful because that was not something that was promoted when I was entering that journey. So it took me a long time to get connected to my why. I thought I had to get a degree to make money. But really, you can earn a degree to fulfill your purpose. And that's something that I learned much later in life.
And I would agree, right? Words do matter. When you talk about traditional versus non-traditional, words do matter. Setting expectations up for our students on what that means to get a higher education matters as well. As you pointed out, just because you become a college graduate does not mean you're going to earn, millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
In fact, there's been some research that shows graduates actually earn just as much as maybe your non-traditional, quote unquote, student might earn.
Yeah.
So what should education leaders do, right? So if I'm a decision maker in the K-12 space, what's the language I need to be using to let kids know that there's more than one pathway to success?
I think that it's important for kids to know that these are, like you said, it's a pathway. You can take this way, this route, that way, the other route. But being tethered into what interests you, what inspires you, and what motivates you is important. Some people are motivated by money, and there's no shade to that. That matters, especially in this economy. But some people are motivated by interests. Some people are motivated by their, something that's inside of them that's intrinsic, that's sent, that they're called to help. And I think that all of those things matter. And I think that sometimes, for example, I used to teach these first-year success courses at the university. And so I would have students that would come into my class as a one-unit class, and they would just explore careers and majors. And a lot of those students were 18, 19, some were 20, 21. And they would say, well, my mom said I needed to be a doctor. And my dad said I needed to be an engineer. And my nana said that I can't be an engineer because that's a man's job. So I can be a teacher or a nurse. I think that we need to stop being so tethered to title and push our students to be connected to purpose. What inspires them? So for example, one of the young women that was in my class who said her nana said that she could not be an engineer. I asked her, well, why do you want to be an engineer? Why is that something that you're interested in or intrigued by? And she goes, well, my family's from this little pueblito in Mexico, and the grid is always so terrible there. And I would love to learn about what it would look like to improve the grid and, expand access to Wi-Fi and this and that. And, she had really thought about it. And so her connection to that degree was not financial, it was purpose. It was community. But she couldn't get beyond that because she had been instructed to be tethered to title. Right.
And so, and again, it's parents do the best with what they know, right? And many parents who are working class parents are constantly in survival mode. My mom was constantly in survival mode. I'm sure just as your folks were. So their mind frame is, mija, mijo, get a job that pays well.
Right.
So that way you can support your family, you can support your kids. You don't have to work as hard as I did, right? But there's a component missing, and you keep hitting on it, and I couldn't agree more, is purpose. Connecting it back to purpose. One question I like to ask young students is, if every job in the world paid the same amount of money, what would you choose to do? And I ask that prompt because I always get a myriad of random answers because it gets them to think differently about what it is they like to do, right? So if every job paid the same amount of money, what is it you would choose to do?
Yeah.
And I get some unique, awesome answers.
Yeah.
Photography, start a business, work with kids,
Yeah.
be an artist, right?
You'll learn that so many of those responses are the arts and services.
100%.
Right?
And why do you think that is?
Because the assumption is that the arts and the services don't pay as much. The assumption is that engineering and business and medicine or law, that those are the ones that pay the most, right? And so anything else is less than financially. But so many, especially at a younger age, the kids want to do something that is fun, that makes them feel good. So if you start instilling in, a 10 and 12 and 13-year-old that they need to go to law school, without getting them to connect to purpose or the reason why, they're gonna burn out super quickly. You know what I mean?
Right. Or change your major.
Or change
they already
their
might
major.
get there and change their mind.
Listen,
which is something we see all the time, right?
100%. I changed my major maybe 5 times because I was a scholar athlete. I went into kinesiology,
right,
because like a lot of us did. And then after I stopped playing sports, I was like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Then I went into I was pre-nursing. And then they told me that I couldn't do pre-nursing because I had a full-time job and I didn't get a second opinion. So I just took whatever she said, whatever they said. And I just at no point asked for help. And I changed my major 1,000 times.
Right. But is that a bad thing?
I mean, the bad thing is not changing the major. The bad thing is not asking for help.
Say that again. The bad thing is not changing the major. The bad thing is not asking for help. So many times we are too embarrassed to ask for help for fear of looking like a failure. Or not looking like we don't know what we want to do.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is,
it's
right?
Like it wasn't a muscle that I built growing up, asking for help. It's like we just got to, what do they call it? Like white knuckle through, or just kind of like pull through or bootstrap it or whatever the saying is.
Right.
That's how we all grew up. We just figured it out.
We just figured it out. And sometimes we don't even have boots. Half of us don't even have boots to begin with to pull up.
Exactly. We got chanclas, some of us.
Right. Some of us have chanclas. Or some of us maybe received the chancla growing up, which is a whole nother conversation.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So let me ask you this. I want to talk about diversity in education.
Okay.
Is that important? Is it important to see representation in higher ed? Specifically.
100%. I love talking about this. Like, it gives me like a little twinkle in my eye.
Okay, what's the twinkle? Tell me why it's important.
I want to start off by saying this, that representation is not liberation. Okay? Representation alone does not get us to the second tier of liberation or liberatory structures or liberatory practices. It matters to be intentional when you think about representation, right? But diversity matters too, and I think that sometimes diversity is tethered to the thought of like racial, ethnic, cultural backgrounds, but really it's also experiential. It could be diversity of thought, diversity of experiences. When we think about the students and the wealth of knowledge and lived experiences that they bring into the classroom, that's also diversity of thought, diversity of experience. But this word has become so loaded, right?
Politicized.
Weaponized. Yeah. But it's a beautiful thing. And if we didn't have it, we would not be as powerful as we are, right? We would not move as many mountains as we do if we weren't diverse in our thinking, in our experiences, and in our representations too, right? Like Sophia was just talking about how, the different percentages of Latinas that have doctoral degrees, right? I think that the percentage moves a little bit here and there, but I think right now in 2025, the percentage of Latinas that have doctoral degrees in the country in 2025 is less than 1%. Might be less than 3%. But still, that's so few. So when it comes to representation for me personally, it's really important that I utilize that title for good. Not for clout, but for good. So when I graduated with my doctoral degree in 2021, this is right after the pandemic. So we're like home working, homeschooling, home dissertating. and virtually defending my dissertation. I finished, and there was a colega of mine that I was like, man, I'm so glad I'm done. And she was like, oh, no, girl, you're not done. You're just getting started. She was like, this is where the real work happens. And we talked a little bit about what representation really means, right? And so, like, for example, on my Instagram, I shared a lot about my doctoral journey and even experiences having children, a full-time job, and dissertating at the time, because I don't often think, too, that the experiences of student parents is represented as broadly. And I had gotten reached out to by a lot of other Latinas with similar lived experiences, and I've served on many different dissertation committees to try to, kind of empower them too and serve as a good representation of Latinas that have acquired their doctoral degrees.
Right. And I want to take it back to something you said. You said, I'm doing this to do the work and not for clout.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Not for clout. So what advice would you give a young Latina who's coming up, who's in a program and life's hitting them, right? Perhaps they're a parent. Perhaps they're also working full time. What advice would you give them to get them to see that at the end of the tunnel, it's worth it?
I'm going to pan over here real quick to someone that's in the room over here. Don't let anybody tell you no. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Don't let the fact that you haven't seen it done before limit your ability to do it yourself for the first time. If you're the only, if you're the other, if you're the first, if you're the inaugural, what a beautiful thing. Don't lean into the idea that imposter syndrome is yours. It's theirs. Don't own it. Don't hone it. Reject it vehemently. When I was in my doctoral program, there was a tenure-track professor that I had connected with, and I needed some permissions to move forward in this like different department. And he tells me he's not going to give me these permissions because I'm naive to think that I could move forward with it. Like, I'm a mom, and I'm a wife, and I work full time, and I'm a doctoral student. And I was like, you know what? Like, you don't know me very well, but you can watch me try. And I think about that story constantly because, like I said earlier, I'm a little bit motivated by spite, but also, how dare he? How dare he see me like that? And how dare I embrace it if I ever did? Fortunately for me, my mom and my nana are my grounding space. And I hear them being like, don't talk about my baby like that. I hear them tell me all the time. And I think about my daughter too,
Yes, absolutely.
Now that I'm at this stage, my nana has like a third grade education. She couldn't move on in her educational journey because there were stigmas for women in Mexico to get degrees because men don't like educated women. This is the message that she received in the 20s, 30s, 40s. My mom didn't go pursue her like master's and doctoral program because she experienced also a lot of like machismo and, the patriarchy and all these other barriers that stood in the way of the perception she had of herself that she could accomplish those things. My daughter will never have that. And also, in me earning this degree, I did that for my mom and my nana too. I earned this award at the Hispanic Convocation at ASU, and there was thousands of people there. And my nana was in the top of the audience, and my mom was right there. My nana is in a wheelchair, so she was like in a little VIP corner, And I gave them a shout out, and the entire crowd looks at them and gave them praise. Like, we earned this degree. So when I think about representation, degree achievement, and degree completion, I think about how we did that,
So, first of all, I was just imagining that whole entire scene in my head about everyone cheering on Nana. And because it's ancestral, right? You are your ancestors' wildest dreams. We all are. And so with that being said, as we wrap up our conversation, I have two questions for you. One question, what would you tell 12-year-old little Dr. Lopez? What would you tell 12-year-old Dr. Lopez? Just one piece of advice.
Yeah. I would tell her, you can, mamita. You can. Don't even think twice about it. Don't let those voices discourage you. You can. Anything that you want to do, no matter how hard or how high it is, you can, always.
Awesome. You can.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly is, if you had a magic wand, how would you?
Wait a minute.
If you had a magic wand, it's education focused. If you had a magic wand, what change would you make to make the education system more equitable for marginalized students?
Whew.
That's a big one.
My God, that's such a loaded one. I want to think dreamer-wise. I want to think whimsically. I want to think, fancifully. But I also just kind of want to think logistically.
Okay, talk to me.
I wish we would use data to make decisions. I wish that data moved the needle. There's so much work that so many education advocates, nonprofit organizations, institutions, researchers, scholars, practitioners have done to acquire the data that we need to inform the decisions that we have to make in order to make these systems more equitable for students. All students, with a special importance towards students who have been historically marginalized. Unfortunately, that data that we've spent years to collect is not being used to inform decisions. Some decisions are being informed by politicized emotions, feelings, and discussions.
I agree. And what a great wish that would be to utilize to get our leaders to understand the value of making data-driven decisions instead of off pure political emotions, which oftentimes hurt our kids. And so with that being said, thank you so much, Dr. Lopez, for joining us. Thank you all for tuning in to Beyond the Bell, sponsored by Copper State Education Alliance, where we bring real stories from education leaders that are doing the work each and every day to help our kids reach their fullest potential. Thank you.